I was recently asked by a well wisher who had come to pay their last respects on my father's passing in Hongzhou. And the question was, what do I practice or what do I identify as from the three different types or schools of Buddhism, namely Theravada, or what we used to in the past know as Hinayana. Then there's Mahayana and Vajrayana. And it didn't take me long, although I've realized that there are many questions that I, as a journalist, used to ask my guest, that most of them had never given a thought, and found myself in a similar predicament. But it didn't take me long to answer that I identify or I am a Vajrayana practitioner. And in all sincerity and humbleness, I did not make that claim as a way of boasting, but rather out of sincere thought and practice of over 25 years. And he asked me the reason why, because why did I choose to call myself a Vajrayana practitioner? And I said that while over the years I feel that it needs to be a step-by-step progression. You need to start, I think, from a Theravada kind of perspective, where you start to be kind to yourself and care for yourself. Then you expand that thought to Mahayana and finally with Vajrayana. And the reason why I said I identify and I practice Vajrayana is because I said since I started to fade and I started to lose my vision, something that I've been getting spades of is obstacles and challenges and so-called suffering. And I said I love the fact that in Vajrayana Buddhism, it is a path where, for a lack of a better expression, the illness itself becomes the cure. So with that, hi, my name is Karma Dendup, and this is a Wednesday. And for those of you who've been watching this for previously, it needs no introduction. Every Wednesday I do a video called #MyTake. And today the letter is S, and what I wanted to talk about is S for suffering. For those of you who follow me on YouTube as well as on Facebook and Instagram, I had previously, I think last year around Dushengazom, one of the most holiest days in the Buddhist calendar, I spoke about the truth of suffering. And I thought today, as it's day 2 of the global peace prayer ceremony here in Thimphu, I thought it takes reminding for us that after Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, cut a long story short, he found himself in Sarnath and he shared with his first 5 human disciples. He taught the 4 noble truths, and the first of it was the truth of suffering. Now, many of us who have delved into Buddhism or intellectually tried to understand and comprehend what the Buddha taught, it's not a surprise, because it's basely and generally categorized as, ke ga na chi, which is like birth is suffering, sickness is suffering, old age is suffering, and death is suffering. And beyond that, some of us must have dug a little deeper and we went into getting what you don't want is suffering, and not getting what you want is also suffering. Not getting what you want is kind of easy, because say you wanted a Lamborghini or a Mercedes Benz and you didn't get it, so it's obvious it's suffering. But if not getting what you don't want is an interesting one, because many of us, maybe we want an iPhone and we get stuck with a Samsung, or vice versa. Maybe you wanted a Samsung and you got an Apple phone. So getting what you don't want is also suffering. And this I was introduced to this, or I found out about this much later in my practice. Beyond that, what I also wanted to share about with regard to suffering is how there is no way of telling anyone suffering is more greater than the other one. In some sense, like in my case, you can say that my vision loss is suffering, and for somebody who has a fear of what it might be like, or has ever thought or imagined or pondered over what a situation might be like to lose one's vision, it's everything and more. So it's horrifying. But beyond that, in the same way, if I were to look at a teenager right now and who's playing maybe Roblox, or is playing Minecraft, trying to get a new skin, trying to get some Robux, is suffering. Beyond that, maybe you're a teenager, young adult, you're going to the salon, you're trying to get your hair a certain shade of pink or yellow or blue or purple or whatever shade that you want. And no matter how much the hairdresser tries to get it right, it doesn't work and it's suffering. In a similar way, somebody might be diagnosed with a terminal illness, and that obviously and definitely is suffering. But if you love someone and that person does not reciprocate your affection and your attention, then that too is suffering. And how are we going to quantify and say that, my suffering is greater because it's physical, your suffering is not great because it's emotional? So that's what I wanted to share with regard to suffering. But beyond that, what I also wanted to share with regard to suffering is that just because you sit down and you reflect and you contemplate on the truth of suffering, it's not like it's going to invite suffering to you and you're going to start suffering. Because it's safe to assume that the vast majority of us do not wake up in the morning contemplating or thinking that, hey, I want to dive into a pool of suffering. But with all of our bestest efforts, we still find ourselves hurt, still find ourselves in painful situations. So, my two bits about the situation is it's better to understand what is suffering. Because beyond that, one thing that the Four Noble Truth, maybe I lack understanding or reading or learning with regard to it, is the fact that it doesn't share that it's not suffering 24/7. So while I, taking my own example, I have vision loss, but then I have so much more things going for me, in a sense that I have the love of my life to spend the rest of my life with as my wife. Beyond that, I have two daughters who are intelligent, smart, kind, and who fill up my day and hardly give me time to feel sorry for myself. Uh, Beyond that as well, also, while you might be hungry in a day, you might find somebody giving you a treat. Or the point of it being, without losing focus, is the fact that just because you spend some time trying to understand what the first noble truth after a man becomes a Buddha shares is not going to invite, or it's not going to be like tar that you get your hands dirty just because you started to reflect on suffering or sorrow or whatever label you're comfortable with. And in my life, I have found that, like they say, Dungel Shebraja. So it's like you need to know suffering so that you can recognize sukha, or happiness. In many ways, I find it ironic because many of us go through life like, we scroll. There is a scrolling culture. We scroll through on TikTok or on Facebook or on Instagram. And I find it shocking that many of us, myself included, it's so hard for us to like a comment or make a reaction to it, when somebody has taken that effort of making that video or that post. It's like as if we feel that, if we like this post, then we will run out, as if there is a finite number of likes and reactions that you can spend on a day. And just because you like someone's video or like someone's post, that you might run out of it. And in that very similar light, I think even with regard to suffering, we think that just because we contemplate it or we start reflecting upon death and impermanence, that we might invite it. So, Las, that's what I wanted to share.